they have a new defensive coordinator. So they don't run a single high system where they're running with one deep safety. They are switching over to what is very popular in the NFL right now. Something I've been doing a lot of thinking about is this two high quarters defense where you're running with two deep safeties and you're playing with smaller zones in deep coverage. So quarters means 4 deep players. And then there's variations of that because you can't play just one system. But this fits what Kalen King is to me in the NFL as a guy who ran a 4-6 but has great zone match instincts, is where I think he can be a corner in the NFL where he doesn't have to be sticky cornerback number 1. This is something I just wanted to do this after the draft and kind of have a conversation about some of the best and worst fits from this past weekend. Nate is here with me to be the ping pong table and let me bounce off somebody else because I got a lot of thoughts and I want to get to all of them. So Nate, thank you for being here. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. To the audience, I apologize for the bright exuberance beaming off of my face right now. If you're watching, hopefully you're all listening on a podcast because this is it's worse for me than it is for you. I can promise you.
I'm gonna have to make you blush so we can see how crimson we can make your face over.
I mean, it can't get any worse than this.
All right, so I want to go through these kind of rapid fire, talking about the best and worst fits for Penn State football players in the NFL draft. We're only focusing on the 8 players that went in the draft and not the guys that went afterwards as undrafted free agents. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing today, and some new information. If you, we have a recorded show that comes out on Wednesday. There's some stuff here that I'm going to correct preemptively, some things I said that were incorrect earlier in the week, so we'll see how that goes. This is the beauty of the internet and recording out of order, Nate.
Yeah. So, well, and I did not pay very close attention over the weekend, but I know you have some thoughts on best and worst fits.
Yeah.
So to me, the first name that you have at the top is not one that I anticipated. So what do you got? The best overall fit among Penn State's draftees.
So I want this to be kind of an understanding of best fit doesn't just mean best player, and it also doesn't mean just best organization. It's what's the highest chance of success for the individual player given their circumstances and their particular profile. So with that in mind, Hunter Nourzad has the absolute best fit he could have gone to, because I don't know that he's ready to play right away. They've got 3 players on the interior of their offensive line in Kansas City who have contracts that are expiring in Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, and then Joe Thuney in next year, and then the year after, with Thuney being the guy the year after. So they have a rock-solid interior offensive line. They have a great offensive line coach, but they need a player for the future. And Hunter Nourzad is kind of a boom or bust, hot and cold player. His tape is wild at Penn State. I've seen him do some of the best, most athletic things of any offensive lineman that isn't Olu Fashanu, and then I've seen him not understand how to pass off and pick up stunts to a degree that was debilitating for the Penn State offense. So he doesn't have to play right away. So he can fix some of those things. He can get healthy from this offseason injury that he sustained, and he can kind of work his way into the lineup. So from a long-term perspective, I think he has above average skill for an NFL football player on a physical side, and he'll have the administration around him. Andy Reid's his coach. Patrick Mahomes is his quarterback. You can't go to a better offensive situation in the NFL. And I think they know what he is, and they're betting on the long-term upside as a replacement for one of these guys when contracts become a thing for the interior. That's why he's the best fit here.
Interesting. You've got you move to the defensive side of the ball for your next pick, and you know, a little bit of a Odafe Owe, right? Like,
yeah,
it feels trendy to me in terms of the Baltimore Ravens and where they have gone for their defensive ends.
I apologize. I gave you the wrong information. I did not bold the next player. The next player is Olu Fashanu. But no. Here's the thing, Nate. The best fit is Adisa Isaac. But this is where we have to balance. We can't just rank this as here are the worst organizations and here are the best organizations in football, because the Baltimore Ravens are a far superior organization to the New York Jets. but Olu is a better player, and he fits the scheme well. So that's why it's a cop-out here. That's why I had to rearrange these, so that's my bad.
So you should put Adisa above.
It should be Adisa, but the official BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, you can check these out at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Sign up it's $2. I'm getting too excited. It's $1 for 2 months of access when you use promo code PSU1 if you're watching here on the podcast. Olu is so talented, he can fit in just about any scheme. So long term, I don't have any problems with him fitting in a gap scheme or an outside zone scheme like he is now. My problems that keep him out of the #1 spot is I don't trust Nathaniel Hackett. I've watched his offenses as a Buffalo Bills fan. Did you know that I'm a Bills fan? I don't know if anyone's mentioned that this weekend.
I had an idea, yes.
So I don't trust Nathaniel Hackett. I don't trust the Jets that long-term they're going to keep Robert Saleh, who I think is a good coach, but is a defensive coach without a quarterback over the last 2 years. Aaron Rodgers is healthy. If they don't make the playoffs, is this whole thing blown up? And then what is Olu's situation after that? That's the reason he's #2 here, is because the Jets are kind of a dumpster fire, and he could succeed individually, but he might not reach the maximum of his potential because who knows where this team is in a year. But again, he fits what they want to do really well, and his situation of not having to walk in and be the starter, but he could also eventually take over even this year as the starting left tackle. I think it's a good fit for Olu. So just, from an organizational standpoint and a best chance to succeed, he is #2 on this list because of his talent, not because of the situation around him. I think he is overwhelmingly talented that can overcome those things.
All right, well, let's get to the one that I jumped the gun on, Adisa Isaac.
He just fits because the Baltimore Ravens have an awesome front seven, and I was trying to study on this, and I was watching some All-22 film of the Ravens defense, and I was just like, okay, this is different. I've always known it was different. I've studied them before, but I haven't really gone in depth on looking at how different pieces would fit. They are genuinely a defense that has no identity. They can go 3 down to 4 down fronts. They can play 4 down fronts with 3 down personnel. They can play just a bunch of different stuff. So whatever they think Adisa Isaac can do, they're going to ask him to do those things, and they're not going to ask him to do the other stuff. Also, the Ravens have all those big bodies up front. They major in run stopping with defensive tackles. So he's not going to be put in a situation where he has to do a lot of things where he's outmatched physically, I don't think. He's 249 pounds. He plays stronger than he is, but he's not Jadeveon Clowney, who's on the roster. He's not even Odafe Owe, who's on the roster. So I think his physical skills and his overall ability to rush the passer and all those things, they're going to be highlighted. So he is probably the second best fit overall, but he is not the same talent as some of the other guys that went in the first round, obviously. I think that's fair to say.
Sure. Do you want to move on to Chop Robinson and the Miami Dolphins?
Yes, and this is where I have to do a little bit of Nate. Your face is how I feel at the moment. A little embarrassed. I cover Penn State football. I do not cover the Miami Dolphins. I am a Bills fan, so I understand all these situations, but I don't watch every Dolphins game. And so doing the research for the fit with the Dolphins, especially after the first round, being up super late, I missed the fact and didn't remember the fact that both Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb had really bad injuries at the end of the season. Jalen Phillips tore his Achilles. That's going to be one that takes a very long time to come back from. And, I mean, we've seen, especially defensive linemen and pass rushers, the explosiveness. Look at Adisa Isaac. Took him 2 years. And then Bradley Chubb tore his ACL in the second to last week 17 of last year. So my analysis of he goes into a great situation. He's going to be a third down specialist. He doesn't have to start, blah, blah, blah. Not quite. Still, holistically, he fits really well from what they want to do. They want to score points and they want to get sacks. And he fits that really well. I also think his athleticism, he can be a little bit hot or cold in the run game and it'll be fine, where maybe he doesn't have a ton of tackles, but also he's getting in the backfield and making explosive plays in the run game, slipping blocks, getting TFLs, but maybe he gets caved in for a big run. Like, I think he's going to give and take in the run game, but I think he can hold the line, essentially, as a pass rusher.
Gotcha. The guy that might have generated the most conversation of anybody, and probably for good reason, Kalen King with the Green Bay Packers, making good out of bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So this is another one that, doing a little more digging today on the initial fit, and I'm going in and looking at some of the data of what they did last year. They have a new defensive coordinator. So they don't run a single high system where they're running with one deep safety. They are switching over to what is very popular in the NFL right now. Something I've been doing a lot of thinking about is this two high quarters defense where you're running with two deep safeties and you're playing with smaller zones in deep coverage. So quarters means 4 deep players. And then there's variations of that because you can't play just one system. But this fits what Kalen King is to me in the NFL as a guy who ran a 4-6 but has great zone match instincts, is where I think he can be a corner in the NFL where he doesn't have to be sticky cornerback number 1. So this does fit his skill set and what I projected him into the NFL as in this particular defense with Jeff Hafley, the Boston College head coach, now as the defensive coordinator for the Packers. The problem is the Packers, kind of like when Rasheed Walker was drafted, they drafted volume. So there's 3 other players that they drafted in the secondary before Kalen King with 3 picks left in the draft in the 7th round. So he's got an uphill climb. I don't know that he has the physical tools of a Rasheed Walker in the same situation where Rasheed Walker always had NFL left tackle feet and starting ability. He just needed to play with consistency. Kalen King is an NFL player. Is he an NFL starter? I think that's what we'll find out with the Green Bay Packers. But the opportunity is absolutely there in this defense, especially with transitioning away from a cover 1 system. And Eric Stokes, can he fit into that? Do those players in the secondary who underperformed, is there an opening? There seems to be, but he's got to go get that, and there's a lot of things in his way.
For every upside, there's a downside.
Yeah.
What do you got? Who don't you like?
I manufactured this one. Okay. This one that we started with, Caedan Wallace. He's a fine. This is fine. But, this is Al Gore's internet in 2024, so everything has to be polarized. Everything has to be either or. So Caedan Wallace, I needed some guys on this side of the ledger. Yeah, terrible fit. He's going to play on the left side for them, probably left tackle is what they talked about after the draft. And that, despite the fact that there is very little difference between the two, between right tackle and left tackle in the NFL, and really in college, you still get those vibes, right? Like, do you see Caedan Wallace as a left tackle? I know the data says he can, from his arm length to his athleticism, but he just hasn't ever done that. And he's been, I think, in the totality of his career, an average tackle. If you take all the good, all the bad, and you divide it out, he's been probably pretty average. But our storyline says his arc is going up. So he can fit at guard. He can probably fill in at tackle. But if it doesn't work at left tackle, I don't know that they have another option. So he's going to have to stick and fit. And that might be a bumpy ride. And
they spent a relative,
oh yeah,
I don't know.
Starter.
Like fairly high pick. Yeah.
Top of the 3rd round. You expect that guy to play for sure.
Yeah. We love Caedan, right?
For sure.
So best of luck to him. Theo Johnson, New York Giants, next.
Yeah, and this is the wild card. This could be great, or this could be terrible. I've been very clear that I don't know that Theo Johnson is a great run blocker, despite being 260 plus pounds. He describes himself as a guy that's going to be gritty and do everything and do the tough work and all that stuff. And I hope that that's his talent level. I hope that's his projection. I don't have any evidence that it is. So does Darren Waller come back? If Darren Waller comes back and Brian Daboll says we got to see how all the pieces fit together, and suddenly he's playing inline Y tight end, danger Will Robinson is how I feel about that. But if he's a backup to Darren Waller, or he just takes over that role in the offense where he's the move tight end, I think that's a great fit. I think he's got a similar skill set to a Waller or a Jimmy Graham or something like that, and I hope that he's able to do that for them.
It's all about the pieces around you. Who's there, who's not.
Also, the Giants are a dumpster fire. So there's that. On that side of the ledger, there's that.
There's only one team in New York.
Yes. Yeah, and this is truly our only bad fit, in my opinion. The NFL does a pretty good job at doing these things, but Daequan Hardy, to me, doesn't fit the Buffalo Bills. He's a slot-only corner. They play kind of like what Tom Allen's bringing to Penn State right now, the same sort of defense. So, and I wrote this in the article, I've talked about this before, Taron Johnson is 192 pounds and plays linebacker for them, essentially. And with the way the NFL uses motions and shifts, he sees run defense snaps where he is filling the A and B gap in between the tackles. Do you see 178-pound Daequan Hardy doing that? I do not. So he is not a natural fit in this defense, but he's a very good cover corner. He's got elite feet. He could be a dime defender. He's a special teams guy, so he's going to be filling, in this defense, he's going to be filling roles. There's no natural path for him to be a starter at any point, really, to me, with the Bills on defense. So he's got to be exceptional at those other things in order to stick with the team long term, I think.
Gotcha. Well,
yeah.
Maybe Thank you. Maybe he won't. Yeah, I don't know. This is the fastest we've ever gotten through something. So
yeah,
I'll let you take us out, T. Frank.
Yeah, so if you're watching this on Monday night, we're coming back tomorrow, BWI Live. We're talking about Penn State football proper. We're still cleaning up some spring storylines, looking towards the summer. Nate's got a lot more to say tomorrow about Penn State football and some of the storylines that we have answers to heading out of spring football. So that's just a quick teaser. The BWI mailbag is up at bluewhiteillustrated.com, and of course we will have the YouTube comment theater coming back on tomorrow's show. So be with us bright and early, 10 a.m., and we'll talk to you then.